this whole Facebook drama thing is a thing, before that, I used to get these double envelopes from people, meaning there was an engagement going on, and I didn't even know the guy was dating her. In fact, I still thought he was dating this other girl. I mean, I didn't know anything anymore, and now this whole thing has changed the dynamics right now. We're in a series right now in the book of Song of Solomon, all right? And this has been so far, for me at least, a very fun series, a series that I'm glad God includes in the Bible. This series is not just for your relationship, though. If you're in a relationship, you're married, or you're in a dating relationship, or you're very close to being in a dating relationship, you're engaged, whatever, it's not just for that. There's so much more that is learned by who you are and the development of you as a character. And so the gospel, even though God is not talked about in this book, he's not a person in the song. It is a song that was sung. Obviously that has been lost. And so we don't know a lot about the way this all lays out, and that God doesn't seem to be part of it directly anywhere in the book. There is one passage, we'll look at this in, let's see, when we get there, after beginning of April, we'll look at, it could be God speaking to them on their wedding night. Could be, maybe not. But God isn't really part of it, and yet God, I think, is part of every bit of it. And so this series has to do with us as people, how we were designed for relationship, especially our relationship with God. And so I'm very excited to go into this with you tonight. This is the service where you get to ask questions. He laughs. Because this is a dangerous place to be. And I've said that this will be a PG-15. This service is PG-15. We try to keep the morning ones to PG-13. So if you could keep your questions to PG-15, but you can be blunt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But, keep them so that I have a job come Monday is what I'm basically saying here. So, and no, the elders are totally in line with this. I've actually had people say, are you in trouble with this? Like, no, this is great. No problems here. So this is the service where you get to ask questions, and we'll go to that. Now, with all that said, what I want to do is kind of, when we live in this Facebook kind of world, I want to talk about the phases of this. Last night, Drew, sitting right there, he's not sitting there now. If you could all sit in the same spot, that would really help me. I'm trying to learn names. We'll assign seating and, whatever. No, Drew's sitting right there. And I think it was Drew, I'm pretty sure. He asked a question. He talked about, remember I had the 9 rules for dating my daughters and sons. And I said, here's the rules. And he said, what do you mean by dating, right? So eventually I want to get to that definition. I want to get to some definitions for you of, at least when I speak, you'll know what I am talking about. So you might say, oh, those are weird words. Fine. You get your own words. Think about your own definition, but I want to give some clarity on that in a Facebook world. I want to get there. But at first I want to kind of follow the song as the song has unfolded so far for us, and just see how this has played out. How has it went? So the way this song has gone is, first thing, there was attraction, okay? So you have attraction. Those are not tennis balls. Those are little baby chickens. It took you a little while. You got it. Okay, so note to self, when you have to explain it, it loses its humor value. Okay, so the song starts with her. And what does she say? She says in Song of Solomon, Song of Songs, some people call it, the first verse, verse 2, the first verse is just, this is Solomon's Song of Songs, the best of all songs. She says this, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. She really is interested in this guy. She says, for his love is more delightful than wine, and pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. I just like when you walk by. And she says, your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder all the young ladies, maidens, love you. And she says this, take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. Woo! Getting a little steamy, right? She's thinking this. Now, my contention is at this time, they don't know each other real well. So she's thinking this stuff in the beginning. She is attracted to this guy very much. Okay, and so that doesn't, and by the way, you're going to see in this song, you're going to see that she's very attracted to him, and there's at times, especially today, when we look at this, she gets very forward. She gets very forward. Her language gets very forward. I mean, she says, take me into the bedroom. I want that wedding night. Wow, okay? Now, I know a lot of you are like, whoa, unhealthy, right? It's in the Bible, so it's got to be some semblance of health here, all right? Now, we're going to talk next week. If that's your question, hold on to next week. We're going to look at chapter 3, verses 1 to 5. This is next week. I'm teasing you here. And I suppose tease is a word I should avoid in this series. There's a whole bunch of them, actually, I've already listed that I'm just not going to use, and I'm adding to the list, tease. But next week, we're going to talk about love and lust. Difference, okay? Anyway, not this week, though. We're not going to talk about that at all, so just forget about it. Can't have that thought in your mind anymore. Just drop it. She wants to be with him. She wants him, and she's very interested in him. So what does she do as this starts going on in her mind? What does she do? She talks to her friends. She gets counsel, okay? She gets good counsel. I wondered if this would work anymore. Does anyone know about Dear Abby anymore? Anyway, she gets counsel from her friends. And what do her friends say? It's fascinating. All these young maidens who like this guy too, they tell her, oh, we delight. We delight, they say. We rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine. Ooh, it just makes us giddy inside like wine. Ooh, I like it. That's what they tell her. That's the ultimate thing of saying, we think this is good. So she gets counsel. In other words, this isn't crazy. You're crazy about this guy, no reason. They think it's a healthy attraction. And that's a really important part of the process. When you start to get those internal bubbly feelings, that you actually are talking to people saying, I have got oogly boogly about Jane or Joe or insert cool modern name now, here. I've got those. What do you think? And that's where gospel friends come in. Where you have safe friends, a few people in your life who you can speak to, and they can speak right into your life and say, I think that's great. I think it's great. Or, you're nuts. I don't think that's a good deal. Okay? So you got to have gospel friends who you can speak to each other like that. From there, when she gets this counsel to go for it, what does she do? She slips into doubt and self-consciousness. There's this period where she's just like, I don't know. And she says the phrase, one of my favorite phrases in the book, Song of Solomon 1:4, the first part of the verse says, dark am I, yet lovely. Verse 5. Dark am I, yet lovely. She understands her weaknesses, who she is, and she has been working in the sun. She's a laborer. Her family owns vineyards, or her family at least works in vineyards, and her brothers have made her. She talks about in verses 5 to 6. We just won't cover all that, but that she's worked in the vineyard. She's got farmer tan, and it wasn't at all attractive in that culture, at all. Very, very much looked down on, and yet she says, that's who I am. But dark am I, yet lovely. Let me just preach this one more time to the ladies. Just one more time to the ladies. Ladies, dark am I, yet lovely. Dark am I, yet lovely. There's this image that goes through your mind that Hollywood, who's, they're masters of understanding relationships, that they are saying to you what beauty looks like. That is a lie. Every one of us has faults. Every one of us is not the way we would like our bodies to be, our face to be, our hair to be, or whatever. Dark am I, yet lovely. Look in the mirror in the morning and say that. Dark am I, yet lovely. Man, I got wicked breath right now. But dark am I, yet lovely. I don't know if that works for the guys. Guys, you weren't supposed to listen. You were listening. Don't. Messy ladies, do that. Dark am I, yet lovely. From that, she then gets, she gets this counsel. She has these inner struggles. She even says, don't stare at me because I'm dark. They forced me. I didn't take care of my own vineyard, referring to her body. And then it goes on to what I call the pursuit phase. You have to think about this picture a little bit. That's a white Bronco for those in the back. Just saying. And there's this pursuit that goes on. And what does she say? She doesn't even know this guy really well. She's speaking like he's not present, and she asks this question, where are you? Where are you? In verse 7 of this, she says, tell me, you whom I love, where you graze your flock, and where you rest your sheep at midday. And she gets the counsel from her friends, go find him. If you look at the end of this in verse 8, the end of this says, if you don't know, most beautiful of women, follow the tracks of the sheep, okay? So follow whatever tracks sheep make, or little poo-poo, or whatever they leave. Follow the sheepies. And when you get to where the sheepies are, then take your goats and hang out by the tents of the shepherds. Put yourself in his way. For those of you who are into modern terminology, you're hanging out, okay? That's what's going on. She says, go do it. Go pursue it. Now, don't be in his face, and don't get him awkward and all that kind of thing, and, stalk and all that kind of stuff, like the spring retreat video there. You don't do that. But it's okay to put yourself in his path, or vice versa. This then leads to the DTR. The DTR is the define the relationship talk. At some point along in this whole thing, they have this. They have it in the Song of Solomon, where they come to the point where they define what's going on to some degree. She's expressed this interest in him. She's hanging out, and now it's his turn. What does he say? He says, you're like a mare. You're like a mare among the chariots, or harnessed to the chariots of Pharaoh's army. In other words, we talked about this. Those are stallions that lead the chariots, and the mare comes and totally distracts them. I've used this all week with Carol. I've called her the mare all week long. All I'm saying, it has been a good thing. I've been like a stallion among the mares. She asked me, how many eggs do you want for breakfast? And I go, it has been it's been a good thing. Just to say, yeah, you're distracting me. I like the mare. The mare distracts me from everything else, and that's a good thing. And that's what he says to her. You're like a mare. I can't even think straight around you. And then she goes back to self-consciousness. You remember this? She goes back to self-consciousness. And she says, yeah, you know what, though? I am like a rose of Sharon. And I'm like a lily or a crocus of the valley. In other words, she says, I'm lovely. I am. That's okay. I'm lovely. Ladies, you should, if this is one of those places, those churches, repeat after me. Look at your neighbor. Say, I'm lovely. It drives me crazy. But anyway, yeah. And I'm on tape saying that now. But you should. I'm lovely. And yet, she says, I'm lovely, but I'm common. I'm a lily, but there's a lot of lilies. And he responds back masterfully. He says, you are a lily, but guess what? When I think of you, you're a lily among the thorns, is my darling among the maidens. I only have eyes for you, right? And that's what he starts to communicate to her. Yeah, to somebody else, that thorn is somebody else's lily. But to me, it's a thorn, and you're my standard of beauty, baby. You're it. I'm all about that. She replies back to him. She says, oh, man, you're like an apple tree, dude. You're like an apple tree among the trees of the forest. Is my lover among the young man. I look out and I see a bunch of trees, but I see one apple tree. And I like apples. Okay? So she's saying that to him, you are my standard. That's what the progression has been through the book of Song of Solomon. Now, let me get really, really blunt. All right? Let me give some clear definition to some terms. So in a Facebook world, you can have some definition on relationship terms, all right? So these are definitions. Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I forgot the last part of it, right? Yeah, my bad. We forgot about the passion and the purity, right? It's a very pure relationship, but it's very passionate. At the very end, she talks about him putting his arm under her head, and they're cuddling. And then she says this phrase, daughters of Jerusalem, I adjure you, I charge you, by the gazelles and by the gazelles and by the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Why? Because God's a killjoy? No, God's not a killjoy. God just wants you to have this in its proper, safe environment because love is a very, very dangerous thing. It'll crush you if it's not done correctly. I love my boys. All right? I love them when they were 4 years old. But I'm not going to hand them keys to a car yet. There's some age when I'll give them the keys to the car, about 37. But then they'll be ready to do this. But, okay, there's a time and a place for that. And the passage here is saying, be careful with this. It's a very powerful thing. Okay, now, that said, let's get some definition. Relationships in a Facebook world. Let me walk you through some terminology, all right, and the way it progresses. First thing is what you crazy kids now call the hanging out phrase. We're just hanging out. We're just hanging out. To most men, this means up until the moment you're married, okay? I don't know. I don't see just hanging out on the relationship thing. I don't know what that means, you know? And to most ladies, it's like, we're hanging out. What does that even mean? What's going on? The guy's like, I'm good. Yeah, you're good. So this hanging out phase is the idea. It's where you're just getting to know each other. All right, that's fine. It's fine. It's a good phase. It's a wonderful phase. Carol and I knew each other for 2 years as friends. We just got to know each other in a variety of different settings. We were involved in the same campus organization, so we did Bible studies and different things. I just got to know her in those kind of ways. I got some conversations with her. I just did different things, all right, with her. And it's around the end of that time when there was a little bit more of an interest. And so that led to, and usually leads to, a date, okay? Now, what I'm saying before is the hanging out is not necessarily a date. How do you define the two? I would say that, to make it real clear, the hanging out thing happens in a setting where there's a lot of people, even if there didn't happen to be a lot of people that show up. You send out an email to a bunch of your friends, and maybe only the two of you show up. Well, okay, that's not necessarily a date. You're just doing, you're going to a movie or you're going out or whatever. But it was kind of this concept of that. But it's not many of those. All right, if it's just that, dude, you're in the date phase. All right. So you're going out on a date. Doesn't mean you're dating yet. I know, you love this, but that's just confusing. Okay, but the date is, I had a buddy in college who defined it this way. He said, a date is any appointment with the opposite gender. Now I'm going like, no, like I have a date with my accountant, or that doesn't even make sense, right? So it's a little strict. But if you just amend that to say, it's any appointment with the opposite gender with the potential that this is going to go further. Keep going in our relationship. Now, I wasn't going to do that. My accountant and whatever else, it had that. Maybe that's a little more. In other words, you start to go just maybe more one-on-one, and there's this interest developing. It is confusing. We're not dating yet, and I know that phrase, but we're going out on dates phase is very confusing because that always leads to the next phrase, the dreaded DTR, right? Because everybody gets kind of confused. What are we doing here? What's going on here? Help me out. All right? And so somewhere in the DTR phase, somebody has to have the courage to say something very clear, like I said. If I were to say I wasn't interested in you, I'd be lying. That was a very brave statement to make and very unclear. But somewhere in there, you kind of got to say, you know, I'm just going to lay down some cards here. Let me encourage you with this. The DTR moment is where you need to be getting your life from Jesus Christ more than any other moment. Because either way this thing goes at the DTR, you're laying down your cards, all right? If they choose that they say, you know what, I am interested in you, they could become an idol. Even though you feel good at the moment, they could become an idol. Make sure that Christ is eminent. Or that they could actually say, you know, yeah, just kind of don't feel that way. And then you could be devastated. Now, it should hurt because you are interested in this person, but it shouldn't be a 10,000-foot drop. It should feel, you know, if you have Christ in his right place, we're designed for human relationship, and so it should feel like a 10-foot drop. So it hurt, but it's not a 10,000-foot drop because Christ isn't where he's supposed to be. So make sure Christ is where he's supposed to be in your life. You treasure him. He's your God, not this other person. That's a real struggle at the DTR phase. Now, let's just say the DTR thing goes and you move past that. It then goes to what I would call dating. Dating is exclusive. Dating is the phase, let me just give clear definition. Dating is a phase where it'd be inappropriate for you to start going on dates or even seriously hanging out around the tents of the shepherds with somebody else, okay? This is to be like weird. We're courting, we're dating, we're going steady. He's given me his high school ring, I have his letter jacket, whatever, okay? Sorry to go high school on you there, but that whole thing, we are exclusive. And there's this idea that if this continues right, we're dating to the point of wanting to get married. That's the whole idea. If you get to this point, that is when you change the relationship status on Facebook, okay? I'm in a relationship with this other person. Not, oh, I just went out and had Chipotle with them. And I'm just thinking, we're just having chips and guac. By the way, chips and guac at Chipotle somehow got left back from the Garden of Eden. I do not know how that happened. The burritos are good. The chips and guac, it's like, oh, this is heaven. I'm in heaven. And I don't want to know. Don't email me that the guac is bad, because in my own little personal world, it's really good for you. And so just shut up and don't tell me it's bad. But the guac at Chipotle is amazing. Anyway, side point. This is where the update happens. Guys, you want to score one big point for you? Get to the Facebook thing faster and get it updated before her. Don't wait 6 weeks. That might communicate something you're not trying to communicate. You're thinking, really? Really? It does, somehow this makes a difference. And just, yeah. Okay, now, from there it leads to what I would call the proposal phase. The proposal phase can happen both formally and informally. Informally, let's talk about that first. When you start talking and you start making promises to one another, like, oh man, when we're married, it's just going to be great. Well, that's kind of an informal proposal, you know? Oh man, we should start just dreaming about what kind of house we want together, or what should we do for a car, or how big of a television should we get? All these different things are somewhat promises. So if you've made those promises, buy her a television, all right? You're kind of making informal. Guys, just so you know, if you use the phrase, let's go ring shopping, that might communicate something. I'm just saying, all right? Oh, sure, then we'll go look for donuts after that. Sounds like fun. The ring thing is a big, real close to an informal. And gentlemen, when you do the ring shopping thing, if that's a thing that you choose to do, if you wait longer than, ladies, just all at once, tell me what's the appropriate length of time after the ring shopping thing. 6 minutes? How about 6 months? Anybody? 6 months? No way, gentlemen, 6 months. They're like, what? Really? Oh, geez, I'm thinking maybe, after the Vikings ever win the Super Bowl, we'll do this. Okay, so the proposal phase, and if that goes to a yes, that leads to the engagement phase. Now, the engagement phase, technically speaking, means, what does it mean? What does it mean you're engaged? Technically. Anybody? You have a date set. Thank you. That's what it means. Doesn't mean a ring. Doesn't mean she said yes. Doesn't mean he asked. It means you have a date. So you say, oh, we're engaged. Sweet. When do you get married? I don't know, later. You're not really engaged. You're not engaged. Now, I'm not going to be a grammar Nazi, and you'll come up for, oh, look at when's your date? We don't have one. You're not engaged. Forget it. Change your status back to just being in a relationship. I'm not going to do that. I could. So get a date. Get a date. It's a good thing. After the date, then comes marriage. What is marriage? What is getting married? What does that mean? And people say, oh, we're so committed to each other. And it is confusing because at the engagement, you're saying yes. But the marriage happens at this point. Okay, let me make this really clear. Because people often, I do premarital counseling, I say, oh, we're kind of married in our hearts. It's like, yeah, not so much. Let me tell you how this works, okay? Here's the deal. You're married because you're making a covenant with one another. And how does that covenant flow? It has 4 categories. Here's the 4 categories. 1, you're standing before each other and you're making this covenant. You're saying, you, me, baby, life to the end, goods, bads, uglies, wonderfuls, all whatever the nice phrase is. That obviously isn't it, but can't think how it goes. Better or worse, rich or poor, sickness, health, all that. Well, that's the traditional one, whatever you want to do. But you're making a covenant saying that. Before each other, before God, before witnesses, usually friends and family. And in the state of Minnesota, with a legal document that says we are making this declaration to the state. So it's bigger, believe it or not, it's bigger than Facebook. You actually have this thing where you decline it. You declare that you are married. Those 4 things say you're married. So a couple say, well, we're kind of married in our hearts. We want to move in together and the whole thing, and then we'll go through the formal thing later. I say, hey, listen, this is how it happens. It's these 4 things. I got nothing going this afternoon. I got a couple people in the office. Let's get her done. And they always go, I want the cake thing, and I want the flower thing, and all that. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. It only requires those 4 things. We can get her done in about 5 minutes. Doesn't have to take a long time, but let's do it. Let's do it that way. So most people want the ceremony, and it's fine. Then we'll do that, and we'll do it at a proper time. This is I, not the Lord. Okay, so you guys do what you want. All right, but I'm just telling. I'm just saying. But it's me. I'm stepping aside here from Steve the preacher man to Steve the have went through this 1,000 times with people before. Short engagements. I'm just saying. Short engagements. 15, 20 minutes. That's all you need. We got married in 5 months. Jeez, we could have done it in 3. Now, you want all the different things and all that kind of thing. That's great. It's your funeral. Wedding. You do what you want. I knew Carol for 2 years. From the date I took her on her first date until the date we were married was, let's see, October to August. What's that? 10 months? 10 and a half? Giddy up. Let's go. Let's get her done. So that's, I'm just saying. Now, back to the preacher man. Now you got to listen to me. That other stuff you don't have to, or just that little point. Now, today, let's talk about what we're talking about today. Talking today about the progression of love. He's actually going to move then it's the happily ever after phase. Thanks, God. I'm sorry, man. I'm messing you up tonight. It's the happily ever after phase, which I've been in now for 22 blissful, wonderful years of never any drama whatsoever. I know, she's not here tonight. Yeah, she was here this morning, and you should have seen the eye roll that I got at that moment. But hey, let's talk tonight about the progression of love. Tonight, it is my contention what's going to happen in this deal is he's going to go to the proposal phase. And you'll see it. It's really cool. It's very fun. So let me read it through, and then we'll unpack it. We'll spend some time unpacking this. All right, here we go. Song of Solomon, chapter 2. If you want to open a Bible, or I think you should have an insert with you, or you can just look on the screen, however you want to do it. Song of Solomon 2. We're going to cover all the rest of this chapter. Next week, we're going to hit verses 3, 1 to 5. And then that's going to take us to the wedding, which starts in verse 6 of chapter 3. So, and next week we're going to talk about love versus lust. This week we're going to talk about this whole proposal idea, the progression of love. Verse 8, listen, my lover, look, he comes, leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills. My lover is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, I've tried all 3 services to read the next 3 verses, the next 3 lines without laughing, and I have not made it any service. Let me just try. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice. Just reading now. My lover spoke and said to me, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come with me. See, the winter is past. The rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. For the season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard in our land. The fig tree forms its early fruit. The blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. My dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding places on the mountainside. Show me your face. Let me hear your voice. for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom. My lover is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, turn, my lover, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the rugged hills. Now, once again, this is poetry, and so you have to unpack poetry. And this is like any cool song, like one of the coolest songs ever written. Last line of one of the coolest songs ever written was, the pump don't work because the vandals took the handles. Anybody? Besides Gabe? Okay, well, figure it out. Now, great classic tune. Now, let's talk about this. Let's kind of go through stage by stage. First thing is, this is a lover's call. What's going on here? This is a lover's call. He is coming to see her. Remember what she does? She lives at home. She works in the vineyard. She's a peasant, all right? She's not of nobility or anything like that. She's common. I'm a lily among the valleys, all those kind of things. And now he's coming from his palace, if it is Solomon. He's coming to visit her. And how does it happen? Look at what she says, and look at all the senses she involves. She says, first thing she says is, listen, like you can hear him, okay? Listen, it's my lover. Look, here he comes. And she can see him as a dot in the distance coming across the hill. Okay, there he comes. And he's leaping. And he's like a gazelle, and he's across the mountains, and he's coming to see me. She says, my lover's like a gazelle or a young stag, and there's this idea of beauty and grace and athleticism and all this. And he's like, that's him. He's coming. Look at, he's coming for me. Okay, now, those first few lines I already got, 2, 4, 6 lines, make the next 3 not quite so creepy. Like I said, all 3 services, I could not read this out loud without laughing. It's just funny. Listen to this. Look, there he stands behind our wall. So he's come to our house, our family's house, and he's behind the wall gazing through the windows. And to make it worse, peering through the lattice. This is just creepy, right? And it's just, it's like, yeah, it's when does stalking, when does it turn into appreciated, or that's something that I want, or it's like this, like, he's looking at me through the window, okay? The only difference I can see here between stalking and spooky and just freaky and, oh my goodness, there he is invitation. There has to be a semblance of saying, I want this. Okay, so guys, let me just give you a little word of advice here. If there's a girl and you've already had the DTR talk, she kind of gets who you are. All right? And you understand it. And you take a pebble at night and you throw it at her window, and she comes out fully clothed here, and she looks out at you, then she'll go, oh, that's so fun. But if it's just some girl you randomly met, you spilled coffee on her downstairs, you stalked her on Facebook, reversed engineered her Google and found out where she lives, and you're throwing boulders up at her window, and she looks out, I'm just saying that might go more towards the stalking part, okay? But this is seen as a positive thing. He's looking at me. He likes to see me. He's looking, I know it's creepy, he's behind the wall, but he's doing this. Oh dear. Okay, so this then leads to Solomon, the man, speaking. And it's interesting because she quotes him. And I'm calling this a proposal part 1. There's 2 things he proposes to here. Scholars differ on this stuff. For this series, normally when I go through scripture studies with you guys, when we have messages here, I normally have about, maybe 3 to 5 good scholarly commentaries that I'm looking at. I try to study the passage first, look 3 to 5. This one is a minimum of 12. I'm looking at 12 commentaries on this thing, and of that, there's still about 15 opinions on some of this stuff. It's just all over the place. And so people vary on what they think about different things, all the way to some that would tend more towards what I'm saying, that this is a proposal for marriage, to others just saying it's a proposal to take a walk, which I think, it's a little more than that. But anyway, it is certainly a proposal. He's making something to her. I think it's all the way to being a marriage proposal. And he's going to say it in 2 ways. He's going to use a phrase. He's going to use it twice. And here's what the phrase is. He's going to say, arise, come, my darling. my beautiful one. And she's quoting him because, and so if it's a song, it's like, my lover spoke and said to me. So who's singing this if it's a song? I don't know. She's saying it, but it's maybe like one of those deals where you see a movie when they open an envelope and then you hear the dude's voice who wrote it. It could, well, who cares? But anyway, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, and come with me. That phrase is going to be used twice. Come with me. Now, remember what she wanted? May the king take me away. Hurry. He's saying now, come with me. Come with me. Leave this life with your family and come, be with me. I think it's meaning all the way. Come, be with me. And he's going to give her two reasons or two brief looks at what this will be like. First thing, he says this. He says, see, the winter is past. The rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth. The season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard in the land. He's basically saying this. He said, look at, here's the deal. It's like winter. It's like winter's here. Now, this is a great day to be preaching this, right? Because this has been the longest winter in the history of mankind. This has been it. It's just like, well, let's sing. We're supposed to get a big dump again on Tuesday. Is that what I hear now? Another, oh man. I want to enjoy summer, both days of it, you know? I mean, it's just like, this is crazy. It's so long. It's like, come on, let's get out of this thing. And he's saying, look it, the winter's past. And in that culture, it was rain. They had a lot of rain. The rains are over. And the flowers appear. And you get pretty little flowers. Now, here's the deal. Especially in Minnesota. Let me just back up to Minnesota. You have winter. And if you go into the woods and you take pictures and you bring it to your friends down south. They live in somewhere south of Mason-Dixon line. And they look at them and they go, oh, man, you are really good with black and white photography. And you go, no, that's actually color. Oh, okay. It's just black and white, right? That's the world. And somewhere around March, we reinvent Kodak color. All of a sudden, color comes back in. And flowers start to come up. And the season of singing has come. You actually, in my neighborhood, man, we don't hang out at all in the winter. You get in your car and you go, oh, dude, I'm here. How you doing? Get back in there. And you see them, you're kind of you're shoveling or something. You get out, and then you come outside and it's like, hey, I remember you. You've lived there for 10 years. Yeah, I remember you. That's good. It's good to see you again. And there's just a feeling of, I can sit outside again. How nice is that? Maybe I'll take a little more time to as I walk over to my car, I could do this crazy thing and talk with my neighbor. We have this thing in our neighborhood, we like to talk in the middle of the street. Maybe that's a little old school, but we do that. We talk to each other. It's crazy. And you just enjoy this whole thing. He's saying this is winter has left. And not only that, the season of singing has come. I like to whistle. You see, it always brings up that response. I whistle in public places. Sometimes I realize I'm doing it, and then I realize people think I'm a freak, which I got to admit kind of spurs me on to keep whistling, because it's like, yeah, I am a freak. But this is a lost art. People don't whistle anymore. They don't whistle anymore. Hey, attaboy. Whistle. Whistle. And just enjoy. Whistle a song. Not right now. But whistle. It's okay. And if you really hum or sing. That is a great thing. I mean, it's just something that says, time has come. I want to do this. I feel that way. The cooing of doves. Coo, coo, coo. You see doves again. You see these, I have no idea what this means, but they're back. The birds are back. We're seeing this. The fig tree forms its fruit, and then it says the fragrance of the blossoming vines is spread. Now, just in Minnesota, you can definitely do that. You get the spring thing, and you get the smell, not the early smell, that's the sewer smell, but then you get the second, it is. I don't know what it is, a dead, rotting leaves or whatever. But when those are gone, it's just like, oh, that's what non-frozen air is supposed to smell like. It's great, right? Now, here's his point. Here's his point. He's saying this, baby, I want you to come with me. My whole life before this has been like winter. I want you to join me, and I want it to be spring. He's saying this. He's inviting her into a journey into beauty. And I think oftentimes as Christians, and I fall into this, especially as American Christians, take those two things. Christians, because we believe that God created the earth perfect, but then we fell into sin, and that we're in a world that's fallen, and that's true. But I think sometimes we push that too far, and to realize that God still has made beauty. Read this song. All kinds of different things God has made beautiful. We just don't stop and enjoy things enough. Then as Americans, we got all this do list. We got to do the do list. We're going to get it done. And never on the do list is beauty. Never. It's this task. So you go through many, many months and you stop and said, have I enjoyed myself at all in the last 3 months? Doesn't matter. Got a lot done. Keep it going. Solomon's saying here, no, I want you to come with me. And I just want to enjoy the beauty of this, what's going to happen. That's his first thing to her. It goes back to Genesis 2. Genesis 2, when God creates Eve, Adam responds. Remember the best poem ever written to that point? This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She should be called woman, for she was taken out of man. And then whoever wrote Genesis, probably Moses, said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and they'll become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. There's this beautiful thing that God created of human community, and especially in marriage. That's where human community can reach its highest potential in that safety, and it's a beautiful thing. And to make it systematic and rules and lists is not God's intention. It's to be beautiful. That's the first thing he says. Come with me, baby. It'll be beautiful. Second thing, come with me, baby, because I really want to enjoy you. He says this, arise, come my darling, my beautiful one, come with me, my dove in the clefts of the rock. So it's like she's on a mountain, and he says, in the hiding places on the mountainside. Go a couple more there, Scott. Yeah, there you go. My dove in the clefts of the rock, in the hiding place of the mountainside. It's like I can barely see you. I want to see you. And here's what he screams. Show me your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. What's he saying? I just want to enjoy you. I want to hear you. I want to see your face. Why your face? Because the face has more muscles per square inch than anywhere else in your body. Why? So that you can communicate a bunch of stuff. Little known fact, those of you who don't know me other than preaching, you don't know, I don't wear glasses very often. I use them to drive and to preach. Why do I use them to preach? Because I'm reading you right now. I'm totally reading you. I can see your face. Somebody is saying, geez, you went a long time on that one. I heard that. I can see that. Others of you are saying, that's a stupid point. Yep. Someone over here is thinking, I think his fly's down. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's good. So, but I can read you. I can see what you're thinking in a sense. We're having a dialogue, and you're not necessarily saying anything because I'm reading your face. It's a powerful thing God created, the face, just alone, because it communicates a ton. Scott Bailey has told me that upwards to 70 to 80% of all communication is nonverbal. And it's just your face, position of your body. But then he says, I want to hear your voice. I want to know you deeply. I want to hear you talk. Just talk. Tell me about your day. Tell me what was good. Tell me what was bad. Tell me what you like about me. And then when you're done, tell me what you like about me. Oh, wait. Okay, anyway. He just wants to hear her. Something in my relationship with Carol, we're flipped. I'm the talkative one, Carol's the listener. And at times, she'll just look at me and say, can I talk? She'll make that statement. And then I'll say, sure, do you want to talk about me too? But there's this, I need to just stop and just enjoy her. And I'm trying to do that more and more, especially over the years. Do you really want to enjoy that person? And that's what he's doing here. He's saying, this is a proposal. I want you to come with me, my beautiful one. The word he uses 14 times in this book to describe her. 14 times he tells her that. And he's saying, I want you to come with me. Why? Because I simply want to have communion with you. I want to know you deeply. That's what he promises her. Come with me. I want to have beauty. I want to have communion with you. And he's doing it all through the element of commitment, saying, I want to be committed to you. Then comes a phrase that is the most hard and difficult, not necessarily controversial because there's nothing really at stake with it, but this phrase about catching the little foxes, okay? The problem with this phrase is we don't know who spoke it, okay? It's hard to know who's speaking this. So generally right now, we have the man and the woman, and we have this chorus of the daughters of Jerusalem. And the way it's worded, commentaries are all over the map who they think actually said it. So we don't know who said it, and the only other problem we have is we don't know what it means. But other than that, we're good, okay? It says, catch for us the little fox, catch for us the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom. Let me tell you what we know for sure about this. First of all, we know that there are some foxes, and they're little. They ruin vineyards, and these vineyards are in bloom. We know that for sure. Other than that, we're kind of guessing. So, of all these different scholars out there, you can boil it down to basically 3 ideas. Let me give you the 3 ideas, and one I kind of lean more towards. The first one is that these little foxes, she has referred to her own body as a vineyard. Remember that? She says in chapter 1, she says, they made me work in the vineyard, but my own vineyard I've not taken care of. So some people interpret this following that, saying that the vineyard is her, and that she's speaking, it ruins that there are these little foxes that are trying to go after her. That would be that there are other men pursuing her and want to take her away, either relationally or just sexually and relationally or whatever, from this man, from Solomon, okay? Could be that. Now, my problem with that is the phrase. It's catch for us the foxes. Catch the little foxes. Now, see, if that were someone trying to take my girl I just asked to marry me away from me, it would be shoot dead the foxes. Right in the head. Okay? Not catch them. They're cute. Okay. Second one is some people say that in this culture at that time, the little foxes would come in, and they would come and they'd dig up the roots, and what would happen is children would make it kind of a sport to grab the foxes. Now, there's a little bit of evidence that this historically is true, that they would come and they'd want to grab the foxes, and then they would catch them, and I don't know what they do with them, but you play catch the fox. It was a game. So some say that this is, he or she or whatever, inviting them to a little game. What? I mean, a game? Let's play Parcheesi or something, but why are we playing? I don't, it doesn't really make sense here. It's like, I just asked you to this lifelong journey, and now let's play Monopoly. It just doesn't necessarily flow. Most people, and I would agree with this, most people think the little foxes are any distraction or anything in their relationship. That the vineyard here is referring to their relationship. That notice, it's in bloom at the same time that these foxes are trying to ruin it. Here's a quote by a guy by the name of C. Craig Glickman. He says this: the foxes represent as many obstacles or temptations have plagued lovers throughout the centuries. Perhaps it is the fox of uncontrolled desire which drives a wedge of guilt between a couple. Perhaps it is the fox of mistrust and jealousy which breaks the bond of love. Or it may be the fox of selfishness and pride which refuses to let one acknowledge his fault to another. Or it may be an unforgiving spirit which will not accept the apology of the other. These foxes have been ruining vineyards for years, and the end of their work is not in sight. So I agree with that. I think that's the kind of thing this is talking about. The only thing I might disagree with this is, I don't disagree with that concept, but they call them the little foxes. Okay? So catch for the little foxes. Catch the distractions that would take us away from beauty and communion. Okay, so I would look at this and say, those are kind of big things. To me, they're bigger things, right? I would think of it more as the little things. Just little things. For instance, your job. Do you take your job home? When you come home, are you just not able to enter into beauty and communion with your spouse because you're still thinking through your job? Okay, I just got a few emails to do, and before you know it's 10 o'clock and you're mad, or you've got some extra, maybe there's a relationship at work that's all messed up and you're trying to work it through and you can't fix it from home, but you decided that you haven't really decided, it just kind of hangs with you, and you're doing whatever you can to try to fix it, and it's eating you up inside or whatever. I think what they're saying here is, catch the little foxes. Catch the little foxes, Put them by the breakfast table because I promise you they'll be there in the morning. Just don't worry about them right now. I have a phrase that I like to use, and the phrase is, I like to sleep like a Calvinist. In other words, for Calvinists believe in the sovereignty of God. God's in control of all things. And whatever reason, most of us who come from the Reformed tradition believe in an awesome God who's in control of everything. Even though we believe that, we're functionally atheists during the day. Right? I'm just going to get everything done on my own, and then when I go to bed, God, tell you what, I'm going to give you the keys back to the universe now. If you don't mind just watching it for 6 hours while I'm sleeping here, that'd be great. I'll take them back in the morning. I got it. But you take them here. And my deal now is like saying, hey, I can control no more of the day than I can the night. God, you're just in control. I can't fix all this stuff. I can't fix Hope's parking problem and space issues and other things going on. I can't fix people's relationships. I can't even fix my own in certain areas and certain people all the time. And God, I just need you to do it. I'm just going to let that little fox, I'm going to grab it, and I'm not going to let it rob me from the beauty and communion of my relationship with Carol and my boys. I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab it. Let me tell you, catching little foxes will change your relationship. And when you don't catch them, they will run. They will run rampant all over the place. And they will ruin the vineyard. You won't be able to do things. All right, from there, she gives an answer. She hasn't answered him yet, right? When I asked Carol to marry me, I had mentioned last week the DTR, maybe it was the week before, the DTR I had with Carol. We had it on this swing set. I have not been back to this swing set since then. Still haven't been there. I've only been there twice in my life. It's somewhere in Northeast. I'm sure I can Google swing set Minneapolis. I'll find it. We went there twice. The second time we went there was March. I had left for some training down in Dallas. I came back up, and I had left Carol a note in her car. She dropped me off at the airport, but on my way out, I kind of slipped it on her seat, and so she'd find it, and it was a coupon. That's how you say it, by the way, coupon. Up in the north, we do. And it said, good for one fancy dinner, come all dressed to the nines and the whole thing, and when we come back. It's something we like to do in our dating relationship, and so I was going to take her out for a nice dinner. I was also going to ask her to marry me, but she didn't know that. That was at least the goal. I don't know. But anyway, so I took her back to the swings. We sat in the swings, and I had written this poem. And I was nervous, so I wrote down, at the end of the poem, I wrote down, go to one knee, ask her to marry me. I'm not kidding you. I wrote that right in the poem. That's ridiculous, but it was right there, just making sure. As I'm reading this poem, the end of it, and it was so cold. We hit not a blizzard, but it was really snowing. It was really cold for middle of March. It was one of those March, state high school hockey tournament storms that we always get. And I was freezing because I wasn't dressed for that. I just come back from Dallas. I wasn't dressed for this. It wasn't that way when I left. So as I went to go down and get to one knee, I actually slipped and went on both knees. I'm not above begging. I'm not. So I was on both knees here, all right? And I asked her, I said, will you marry me? And she picks me up and says to me, "Aw, Steve." And I'm thinking, "Aw, Steve, what? Aw, Steve, you silly little boy, what are you thinking?" Or, "Aw, Steve, I'd be delighted to do that." And she kind of left me hanging, She hugged me, whole thing. I'm thinking, is she just trying to think of how to let me down here, And she left me hanging. She's leaving Solomon hanging. And here's what I think's happening in this passage. Here's at least the way I interpret it. And the author of this is so long dead, I just get to make it, if this is the way I want it. It's the truth. Is that for postmodernism? Here's the way I see it. He said, "Come with me." It's like this moment, he's down on a knee. And all of a sudden, it's like a stage play or like a movie where everybody else freezes but her. Okay? So time kind of freezes for everybody else. And she backs off and she says this line. It's a beautiful line. Probably one of the most quoted in this book, Song of Solomon. She says this, this is from Song of Solomon, chapter 2. "My lover is mine, and I am his." Do you remember what she wanted before? My lover is mine, and I am his. He browses among the lilies, and people often wonder what that means. I think he's just going back to what he says before, right? I'm a lily among the valley. He could have any girl, and he chose me. And if you just stop for a second and look at how far she has developed. Look at how far she has come. Remember in Song of Solomon 1, she wants him. Take me away with you. And now he's saying, come. Come be with me. Let the king bring me in his chamber. And then she goes to this whole self-doubt thing. Dark am I yet lovely. Don't stare at me. She says, don't stare at me because I'm dark. My brothers made me work. And she's going through this whole self-conscious thing. She says to him, I'm common. I'm a rose of Sharon. I'm a lily in the valleys. And then he responds back to her, like a lily among thorns is my darling among the maidens. This whole idea. And that's how far she's come now. And then she says, my beloved is mine. And I am his. And that's the end of the time freeze. And then she answers him with probably in the history of the world, the most provocative yes ever. I was asking Carol this afternoon. I said, I wonder if anybody would have the courage to actually say yes to marriage this way. And Carol looked at me and she said, it's poetry, dude. It's poetry. She didn't say dude, but it adds effect. But it's poetry. But I would give a shiny dime. and it just has to be done right, though. Believe me. And we're going to push the PG-15 rating here. Here we go. It says this. She says this. She says, until the day breaks. This is how she says yes to him. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee. Turn, my lover, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the rugged hills. Now, I like the New International Version. It is my favorite version for a lot of different reasons. I like that version of the Bible. I like the 1984 version more than the one that's out right now. A lot of people are using the ESV and the NASB. But the NIV gets this one totally wrong. Rugged hills, it's a terrible, terrible translation of this. Other versions get it better. The ESV probably gets it better. What it means literally is this. It says this. Or like a young stag, and it means this, on the hills or mountains of separation with a cleft or cleavage. That's true. There's this. There's two hills, and they're next to each other. What do? Go back to the beginning of the passage, remember? My lover's coming. He's on the hills, and I can see him. And why does she tell him yes? She says, just like you are on those mountains, I want you to be all over my breasts. That's what she says. Almost all the commentaries agree. This is what this phrase means. I mean, this is a very bold way of saying yes. I'm just saying. She's saying, now he doesn't act on it. He doesn't act on it yet. But she's saying, I want that. I want you. Song of Solomon is written by Solomon. Solomon also wrote Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 5 is beautiful in this area. It talks about a man and not looking after other women. Staying with the wife you first started with. Staying with your wife. And he says this in Proverbs chapter 5. He says, may your fountain be blessed. The fountain here in the context of chapter 5 is your sexual life. May your fountain be blessed. And then he says this, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. What he's saying is this, you got married when you're young, you're not young anymore. She's not young anymore, the wife of your youth. And may you rejoice in her. May she continue to be your standard of beauty as you both age. And guess what? You're going to look different. That's just going to happen. It is. And may you rejoice in that. And then he says this, a loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. He equates this concept of her breasts satisfying him, the husband, and her being captivated by her love. And just to say this bluntly, guys, if you're married, those are your breasts. Those are hers, but those are yours. And they're made by God for you. Whew. Hello. Now, may you ever be captivated by that. She's saying, yes, I want this. I want that. Now, Let me break for questions right there. I guess that's a good as point as any. Man, that might be problematic, but. Yeah. Good question. Great question. The paradigm that I gave with the hanging out, dating, all that, is that a common practice? Is that a good best practice, or would you say, thus saith the Lord? I wouldn't even say any of those. Maybe I'd say the second one. In other words, I would say what you're trying to do, especially in this culture, is definition is so confusing. And in this Facebook world where things get announced to many people instantly, electronically, it's amazing. So I was just trying to say, let's give clarity to some of the things that I am saying. You're right, though. Some things don't fall linearly, all right? You'd have a hard time looking at Song of Solomon to say some of that follows that pattern, right? She's moving. I mean, she wants to get married. I mean, she's moved pretty far, pretty quick. And by the way, you'll notice that in the book of Song of Solomon, she's the one that's pushing it. She's pushing it both emotionally and her language is graphic. His isn't yet. It's getting there, believe me. Especially in April. We'll get there. And how you doing? Okay, so it gets more. But he's not there yet. So I would say that those progression things are ways to give definition. I'm proposing that so you know what I'm talking about when I use terms. I'm not proposing that. You don't like it? Come up with your own terms. I'm just saying between the two people as they're in this, somehow they've got to kind of know what's going on so that there's clarity. That was the thing. So, definition's sake. Nope. 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 No. Right. It's the usual pattern, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow this pattern. Love is a weird thing. Yeah. So, great question. Great question. Yeah. 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 Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the question is, let me just see if I repeat it correctly. And there might be some baggage with, not baggage in a bad way, but just baggage with your question. I don't know. Your background. I'd have to ask that. What is your background? Mennonite? No? No? Oh, okay. You didn't say yes. So that, well, that's fine. I'll explain why I asked that in just a minute. Okay, so he says in Matthew, talks about let your oath, don't make oaths. Don't make oaths. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And don't swear by heaven or earth, all that kind of thing. How does that fit in with making a covenant and those kind of things? Okay, I think what Jesus is saying there is, why is it that you think when you make an oath that you need to keep it, but when I'm talking to someone, I don't have to keep it? I think what Jesus is actually saying there in Matthew, it's on the Sermon on the Mount, so I think it's in, 5, okay. I think what he's saying is not so much about don't making oaths as it is about, do you have any integrity when you don't make oaths? So he's saying, let your yes be yes and your no be no, right? So the reason I asked about the Mennonite thing is they won't take oaths. People who are Mennonite, they won't take oaths. They won't say pledge allegiance to the flag. They won't take oaths to the military. Well, that's another problem in Mennonite, but because pacifist. But so that's why I would ask that. So I would say, I don't think what Jesus is saying there is not taking an oath, even though you're going to say, he just said don't take an oath. I know. Jesus also said pluck your eye out. He didn't mean pluck your eye out. He didn't. He's just trying to make a point. And the point is let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, that's what I would say. That's an honorable thing in a person of integrity. And I'm saying you don't say the big yes to your future spouse, and then they become your spouse until that point, and then keep it. So don't say it beforehand, and then say it there. So that'd be the way I'd answer it. So good question. Good question. One more. There you go. Great question. Right. Yes. Yeah. Great question. And I'm going to answer it in 30 seconds. So this is a great question. The question is, seems like she's taking the lead on things. Where does it happen on his leadership? Okay? So, and I think this is, I think there's actually 3 camps on this argument. One is the egalitarian, where everything's equal, doesn't matter who's the leader. One is what I would call the traditional or the patriarchal view, which means sit by the phone and do anything until he says anything. And then if he even asks you, what would you like to do tonight? You say, I don't know, what do you want to do? Right? And then there's what I would call the complementarian camp, which says the husband in this case is the leader, but what leadership means is service. He is the one to lead. He's the one to initiate. He's the one to take blame when things go wrong. Okay? So I see Song of Solomon exactly like that. Yeah, she puts herself up in the tents of the shepherds. She's a forward woman. Okay? Some of you are like horrified by that. That just horrifies you. You think, oh my gosh, this is really forward. But it's in the Bible, right? And yet, he asks her to marry him. He asks her. He says, come with me. Come with me. So she is, in a sense, saying, okay, I'm trusting this. And she's responding to that. So I think that's in the book of Song of Solomon, but boy, it's pushed to its extreme. Now, I prayed for a woman because I can sell, an ice cream cone to an Eskimo, right? I have that kind of personality. I prayed for a strong woman. I am married to a strong woman. This is not on the tape, right? I am married to a strong woman. But at the same time, I know that I have her heart, and we work as a team. And she wants my leadership, but she doesn't want my domination. I think that's the difference. I think it's too easy to put it in that second camp of domination. I want the guy to do everything. It's like, no, that's not leadership. That's dominion, I would argue. So, great question. Let me close by asking you three things. Do you deeply desire these 3 things we looked at today? Beauty, communion, and commitment. These are 3 very frightening words to our culture, right? Beauty, we're busy people. We don't want to just see beauty. Communion, do I really want to enjoy people the way God designed me? And commitment, am I really willing to say I'm all in? I think this falls in 3 areas. 3 areas. First area is just in your own relationships with people. Do you really want to enjoy the beauty of them? Do you want to get to know people? And are you willing to say, I'm in this thing. Through hard things, I'm in it. If you're in a relationship, say you're married or dating or looking to be in a dating relationship or engaged, are you willing to say, I'm looking for beauty in this thing. That's what I want. I want communion with you, and I'm all in. I'm pushing all my chips in. And I think it happens in your relationship with God. Ephesians chapter 5, Paul talks about, and again, I don't think the book of Song of Solomon is all a metaphor about God's relationship with us. I don't. I think it gets a little creepy, especially if you look at the answer that she just gave to him, right? That gets a little, how does that work, all right? But I do think marriage, if you're familiar at all with this passage, that marriage is an analogy that Paul uses in this passage to talk about God and what Christ thinks of the church. And so he says in here things like, husbands, love your wives, just as, and he used the example, Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. To make her holy, that's the church. Cleansing her, that's the church, by the washing with water through the word. And to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish. And then he goes on to talk about the analogy. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as they love their own bodies. Then if you go down to the bottom, he then quotes from Genesis 2:25. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Then he says this. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. My main point in Ephesians 5 is to tell you about Jesus. Relationships, and especially the most intimate relationship you can have in marriage, is ultimately screaming to you about Jesus. Let me go back to those 3 things. Do you want beauty with Jesus? Do you want to just enjoy the beauty and the wonder of who he is? This screams beauty. This screams beauty. Do you want to have communion with him? We call this communion, but what it ultimately means is, do you not just want to know doctrines about Jesus, but you actually want to know him and enjoy him and in essence, look at his face and hear his voice? Do you want to read his word and say, Jesus, just fill me with it. Fill me with your word. And ultimately, do you want to have commitment with him? Have you taken your chips and say, I'm all in? This screams Jesus saying, I'm all in. Let's pray.